more debating. Jon Jones is the greatest of all time.
Jon Jones is undeniably the greatest MMA fighter ever, with a dominant career in both the UFC light heavyweight and heavyweight divisions. He's unbeaten, untouched by knockouts, submissions, or decisions. He's the GOAT. Let's close it at that. Or at least until 5 years, because that's how long it'll take before we can even entertain a fighter as good as him, because he's not even been defeated yet. His only loss came against Matt Hamill, and it was due to disqualification for an illegal elbow in between a flurry of fight-ending strikes. MMA can be unpredictable that way, from unexpected strikes to injuries, cuts, or even controversial judges' decisions. Many fighters miss out on the W at times, but not Jon Jones, because he's practically invincible. He's never exhibited any weakness or made major mistakes during his fights, and this type of consistency can be psychologically intimidating for his opponents. Take his bout against Cyril Gane, for instance. The Frenchman hesitated to unleash his striking abilities against the MMA GOAT, which allowed Jones to seize control and secure a first-round submission. Jones has even admitted that Gane wasn't his hardest opponent, and he's dominated every UFC legend in pretty much the same way with his unique blend of skill, fighter's IQ, and adaptability. That's mostly because Jones was thrown into the deep end of the UFC pool right from the beginning. Now, what's interesting is that many of his fights tend to follow a similar pattern, because Jones is a master at taking control of the action. That's why his fights aren't as competitive as you might expect. Sure, it takes a lot of skill to feel comfortable no matter where the fight goes, but he usually dictates how the fight unfolds. This is really impressive considering all the tough opponents he's been up against. If you sit down and watch any of his fights, you'll see how effectively he dismantles his opponent's game plans and prevents them from gaining any momentum. A classic example of Jones at his best was his fight against Shogun Rua, where he claimed his very first UFC title. Jones came out swinging with wildly unorthodox strikes against the champ. Just imagine, it was his first shot at becoming the youngest champion, and he was still going with the flow. He also played the role of a real-life hero by stopping a robber from stealing someone's purse just before that fight. It's all a part of the incredible story that makes him so great. Sure, we've seen many fighters in the UFC who can control different aspects of their fights, but Jon Jones has a unique style. He chooses to confront his opponents in their strongest areas, which is both fascinating and impressive. One example of this was his first bout against DC, who was shorter but known for his Olympic-level wrestling. Before the fight, Jones even talked about taking Cormier down, and he did so multiple times. What made that fight even more impressive was that a big portion of the fight happened in the clinch, where Cormier is the strongest. But Jones managed to land more significant strikes and secure most of the rounds, and ultimately winning. But this isn't the only time he took the harder path to prove a point. He initially focused on striking in his fight against Quinton Rampage Jackson, but he showed everyone later on that he could take it to the ground whenever he pleased. While this strategy occasionally made fights more competitive than expected, it raises an important question. Just how dominant could he be if he prioritized securing easier victories? Well, he's known for his laid-back approach in many of his fights, even in the fights when he was seriously tested and pushed to his limits. The fight against Alexander Gustafsson is a prime example. Jones openly admitted that he believed he might lose his belt due to a lack of proper training as he walked toward the octagon, because his camp was filled with partying and not taking the fight seriously. So, sure enough, the Swedish light heavyweight took the fight to the champ, even managing to take him down, which was a first in his career. He lost several rounds and sustained a cut. Now, this situation might have led to a breakdown for many fighters, and there would have been no shame in that. But Jones is as resilient as they come, so he regained control in the final rounds. And that fight went on to become one of the greatest in MMA history, leading to both Jon and Alexander's induction into the Hall of Fame. That was the night we learned that Jon Jones is not one to quit, even when he's pushed to his absolute limits. This just goes to show that he's an athlete operating at the highest tiers of his sport. After all, there aren't many athletes with his type of physique and the ability to endure grueling fights against some of the world's top fighters. If there ever was a personification of a once-in-a-lifetime talent, Jon Jones would fit that bill. But his greatness extends far beyond all that. What truly distinguishes him is his unmatched fight IQ, a quality many consider the best in the entire UFC. Although this isn't something you can measure with numbers, it becomes crystal clear when you watch him perform under the bright lights of the octagon. Jon, along with his dedicated team, take fight strategy very seriously. Their goal is to deconstruct their opponents, leaving no stone unturned in understanding every potential threat they might pose. So, when he steps into the octagon, he's not just physically prepared, he's also mentally equipped to handle anything that comes his way. This, paired with his vast array of fighting techniques, makes him almost unbeatable. To truly appreciate his thought process, you just need to tune into his pre-fight interviews. It's not just about studying his opponent and devising a game plan. Jon excels at making lightning-fast decisions during a fight and adapting to unforeseen challenges as they arise. Take his second showdown with Daniel Cormier, for instance. Jon had openly discussed his intention to execute a left leg kick, and he executed this strategy with precision. But what followed was even more remarkable. Instead of launching a bunch of punches after the head kick, he strategically focused on targeting Cormier's legs. This tactic caused DC to spin and fall, securing Jon's victory. All of this occurred in the blink of an eye, highlighting Jon's natural fighting instincts. In short, Jon Jones is destined to be a fighter, and his fighting talent is why many consider him the GOAT of the UFC. After all, he has a very unique set of skills that have given him all the success he has. Just take his impressive reach, standing at 84.5 inches as an example, which gives him a significant advantage over most opponents. But what makes his style unique isn't just this reach, but the way he uses it. Unlike fighters like Antonio Silva, who had a reach advantage but suffered multiple knockouts, Jones maximizes his reach advantage with an array of striking techniques, especially his jab and straight right. So, he isn't just a striker, his wrestling skills are equally as good. His background in the National Junior College Athletic Association with wrestling also gives him all the confidence during fights, especially when executing oblique kicks and spinning back kicks without the fear of being taken down. In fact, he often puts his opponents on the mat, making it challenging for them to mount any offense. His confidence is sometimes misconstrued as arrogance, but it's justified. I mean, he's demonstrated his ability to handle elite competition consistently, and his unwavering self-assurance plays an important role in his success. What makes Jones even more terrifying for his opponents is his untapped potential. He continually evolves and improves after each fight, much like a character in an anime series. This relentless progress means that we may not have witnessed his best yet. In short, Jon Jones' success in MMA can be attributed to his exceptional reach, mastery of striking and wrestling, unshakable confidence, and an ever-evolving skill set that keeps him ahead of the competition. So, not only does Jon Jones have the best IQ in MMA, but he's never been defeated to this day. Not under the right circumstances, at least. Maybe Stipe Miocic could change that, but that's a big maybe, because right now, Jon Jones is the undisputed GOAT of MMA.